This is Jeff Mucci with RCR Wireless News. We're here at CTIA, and we have Ron LeMay, who's chairman of eRecyclingCorps, and Dave Edmondson, who's the CEO. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Can you give us a little background on how you started or why you started eRecyclingCorps?
Well, we really, if you look at the wireless industry over the last, 25 years, it's transformed the way people live, the way they work, the way they play. But we recognized as we got into it that there was an unintended consequence of all that. The unintended consequence is that as the next new device goes out, the old device or comes in, the old device ends up getting displaced and ends up, really well beyond its functional life, being abandoned in a drawer or closet. And ultimately, that creates an enormous environmental problem as these devices start to stack up. And we became very interested in transforming it. Ron and I are both interested in businesses that are really more transformational, where we can make a very big positive impact in what's going on. So we got involved in studying the business, understanding how the system worked today, what some of the alternatives were, and we really believe that we have a better idea in terms of how to go to market and really make a big impact in collection rates.
That's right. On a more personal level, David and I got acquainted when he was CEO of Radio Shack and I was president of Sprint. Had a very good working relationship for a number of years and have been looking for things we could do together. It's not the first thing we considered doing together. So it's kind of ideal that we could find something we could work together on like this that does have the transformational potential this has.
Well, tell me about the business plan. I mean, how do you guys make money? Who are your customers? What's the fundamental business plan?
The idea here is to capitalize on people's interest in doing the right thing. I think people are very sensitive to the environment and the impact electronic waste can have on that environment. So study after study has been done that's shown people would like to do something about that. They realize that this enormous buildup of 1 billion handsets now in people's garages and drawers, all those things at some point when they move or die, whenever, are on their way to a landfill, and it poses a huge contamination issue. What we've learned, though, is that there's a small group of people who will go to the effort just to do the right thing. So they'll put their phone in a package and mail it, or drop it in a box someplace. What we learned as we did research and thought about this, and based upon our experience in the business, we learned that if we could combine economic incentives with this instinct to do good, then we had a program that would really work. And so the fundamental here is to provide people a trade-in opportunity. So an economic incentive, when you come in to purchase a phone, you'll be offered an immediate credit for the phone you carried. So you get an immediate discount that you can apply toward that device, apply toward accessories. The carrier has an opportunity to give the customer another reason to buy, and we take care of the environment. We take the phone, we resell the phone, give it a new life. That's the highest form of recycling. If you can keep something in service, for those phones that can't be put back into service, they're dismantled in a very environmentally sensitive fashion. Nothing goes into a landfill. And so we're able, through convenience when you're in the store and through economic incentives, to accomplish what you just can't accomplish if you're relying simply on people's instincts to do good.
Okay. You mentioned a billion phones. Can you talk a little bit more about the scale and size and scope of this business?
Absolutely. If you think about the wireless industry, there are right now, according to the EPA, 1 billion wireless devices that have been displaced and are sort of unaccounted for, either in a drawer, in a closet, in a landfill. You really don't know where they went. Interestingly, if you took those and you stacked them one on top of another, they would be as tall as 1.5 Mount Everests. So this really is a mountain of e-waste. If you laid them end to end, they would circle the globe 16 times. So this is not a problem that, is a small problem. More importantly, the problem is getting worse every year, because as the amount of time that you want to keep a wireless phone continues to go down with the next latest, greatest technology, the U.S. consumer is probably somewhere a little over 12 months before they trade into the next phone. So there's going to be 130 million wireless devices that are going to get deactivated this year. with only 10% recycling rates, you can do the math. That's
Right.
going to continue to mount up and going to become a very, very, very serious problem. It's going to continue to magnify in times to come. I think the one thing about our business model that's a little bit that's a little different, is that Ron and I, because we had a lot of experience working with, and actually in Ron's case, running a wireless carrier, we recognize that the distribution of new wireless phones has changed a lot over the last 15 years. Think about 15 years ago, there was no such thing as a carrier-owned store.
Right.
Today, the carriers control 60 to 65% of all the new devices are sold through one of their stores. And we recognize there really wasn't going to be any quantum leap forward unless the carriers themselves engage their assets in terms of the store to actually intercept these devices before they get into the drawer. So before you get out of the store, we don't want people leaving the store without having a convenient way to trade in their handset, deliver value to them, help the carrier recycle part of their subsidy, which last year was $10 billion of subsidies in devices. Get these phones so that they can either have an extended life or actually be properly recycled in a ISO certified recycling facility.
Yeah, I might add too that the numbers David's just recited are all U.S. I mean, think about the numbers when you expand this to the world. I mean, we want to work with carriers in other countries as customers of these phones. I mean, this can make a difference in people's lives if we can furnish very well refurbished wireless handsets to someone in another country. The affordability equation changes dramatically. People can buy smarter and smarter phones. It can change people's lives. At the same time, as we've talked with those carriers, they have the same interest. They realize they're doing the same thing within their ecosystem. And so while we're trying to address primarily the U.S., this is a global environmental issue.
So you mentioned the carriers being in a position to intercept the phones. What are some of the other reasons it's important to get the carriers involved in this equation?
Well, the carriers, again, control most of the distribution. And if you look at what the consumer says, first of all, there was just a major piece of research that was done November of last year, which showed that of the people who did not recycle their phone, 98% of them would have recycled their phone had they been offered what they described as a meaningful incentive.
Okay.
Then the question becomes, well, where is that meaningful incentive get introduced? And if most of the new phone purchases are happening at the carrier store, the model has been take your device, which you intuitively know has value because you were just talking on it or texting or getting an email or doing something literally before you walked into the store, and go put it in that box. And that just doesn't make sense to people. They say, okay, give me an incentive. I know this has value.
Right.
And so just give me a reasonable value for that. That then gets put into a box. It gets sent to a facility in Texas, in Fort Worth, Texas. We take that phone and we put it through a triage process to be able to look at it and decide whether or not it has an ability to have an extended life, which 80 to 85% of the devices can be used for many more years to come. Those that can't then get recycled. So for the carrier, it really drives the economics that drive their business. Imagine if you have a fourth source of economics, not just subsidies, not just manufacturers having to lower margins with cheaper handsets or work through industrial processes, or having to charge higher prices to the consumer. Here's a fourth source of economics, the phone you have in your pocket that you don't want to do anything with.
Right.
That's just going to sit in a drawer, that can actually help you buy more accessories, drive ARPU, give you an opportunity to buy a better handset that's more feature-rich. So it's really a win for everybody in the ecosystem.
Yeah, there's significant opportunity for carriers. Carriers have warranty plans, have insurance programs.
Right.
A lot of times they run out of refurbished phones. They have to go buy new phones to satisfy warranty claims or insurance claims. By collecting a large number of phones in this fashion, they have used phones, good quality used phones they can use to supply those. This is a significant economic issue for them, and it kind of continues the circle because they satisfy it with that phone. That phone comes back in later for a trade-in. much less likely we have anything getting in the landfill.
What are some of the major obstacles that you've encountered so far or expect to see over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, we're in a consumer adoption time here where we're trying to change people's conduct.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier because people are coming into the store. They typically have their phones, so we don't think we're going to have the adoption issue you have in other contexts. But we're going to learn a lot about that. We're going to learn, how best to incent people. We have prices that reflect the prices in the marketplace. I'm sure we'll change those prices over time as we try to look at supply and demand. Distribution, what we'd like to do is to collect enough of these devices that we can have direct relationships with foreign carriers. No one's done that yet. And so it's kind of what we don't know about that, I think that's the concern more than obstacles we see. Those carriers we know are interested if we can get a large number of these phones. And so scale is going to be enormously important. Mm-hmm. So how we scale up, I think, is the issue that we think about a lot. We know to accomplish what we want to accomplish for direct relationships with foreign carriers, we need multiple carriers here, and we need to really concentrate on getting the adoption.
So where are you today in your business plan? Which carriers have bought into the concept in terms of giving you phones or providing the phones into the system, and which carriers internationally have bought into buying the phones from you?
Well, I think the most interesting part of this is all of what we're talking about is not theory. Mm-hmm. We started a pilot in July of last year with Sprint.
Okay.
A little over 100 stores in Southern California, and we said, look, let's test the theory. Do consumers want to do this? Are there economics that are acceptable to the consumer? Can we put the processes in place at the store level that don't create a much longer transaction? Because the last thing you want to do is keep somebody in the store longer than they intended to be there. Mm-hmm. And so we put all those pieces in place, and just the middle of February, we rolled out to 1,100 company-owned Sprint stores. We just added last week another 1,400 preferred dealer stores, which are the preferred dealers for Sprint. And just the day before yesterday, we launched a brand new online site. So that you can go directly online to trade in your phone as well. So we have our first customer, which is Sprint, and we have developed relationships. We spent the majority of our time in India. We have an office in Mumbai, India. We've been working with all the 4 major carriers in India. Mm-hmm. And as Ron alluded to, the real issue is now that we have enough volume to be able to satisfy some of their needs, we'll begin matching the types of phones, the models of phones as to where they are in the life cycle with carriers around the world, literally from large carriers like Tata in India to small carriers in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Mm-hmm. And so this will be very much a global business where we can really extend the life of these products well beyond what they would be used here. The average person in India, for example, uses a phone for 7 years. So think about the life-changing and life-extending use of that product in terms of how it affects the environment.
How about security? All my private information is on my phone. Could be some corporate information on the phone. How do you address people's concern about security?
That's absolutely if you're going to have a carrier-grade program, you've got to be able to deal with data security. I think it also starts, you said, what are one of the advantages of dealing with a carrier? The carrier already has all your information in terms of network, who you call, et cetera, and they can be trusted to keep your data secure. So here's sort of the chain of custody. The consumer takes their device. They give it to a representative of the carrier. The carrier takes that device and puts it in a box, and it goes directly to our facility. Mm-hmm. When it gets to the facility, each workstation has basically a slot. So if there's any media, external media, it's taken out, it's put into a locked box. At the end of the day, those are collected and shredded. Every single device that goes through that facility is completely data cleansed in terms of the software. Mm-hmm. Everything is erased from the phone. The phone is reflashed, and nothing leaves that facility unless it's been completely reflashed. Or, in the case of something that needs to be recycled, we actually take a drill and we drill through the chip to disable the phone from ever being useful in terms of somebody collecting personal data. So it's very important that all of the steps in terms of chain of custody be very carefully managed, and we've made it the highest priority at eRecycling to do that.
Okay, before we wrap up, I've got to ask the question, how are you funding operations today? Who are your investors? And when do you expect to start making a profit?
Yeah, I am the lead investor through one of the investment vehicles I created some time ago with my son, Lance LeMay. This business, you never know for sure when you're going to make a profit. This is a startup. It's a new idea. We're very enthusiastic about it. We clearly expect to make a profit or we wouldn't be doing this, but exactly when's not clear. We think though, if we're able to market these devices at the prices we anticipate, that we can turn a profit in fairly short order. It should not be a terribly capital-intensive business. It's kind of back to a question you asked before. What we don't know is what we don't know about that.
Right.
So we're going to have a lot of learning with respect to that. But we certainly do anticipate turning a profit in the short term.
David, Ron, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting us.